Thank you very much, Gonzalo. And thank you very much, everybody. Very nice to be here in University of Vigo and this really nice campus today. And we are also privileged to visit one village in this area to take a look at the shell fisheries management. And we have a really good sense of how the local fishers and technical assistants and university people are collaborating to try to create a kind of management model that is closely fit to real local situation. And this is what we really would like to do in our project. So by the way, how many minutes do I have?
40 minutes.
40 minutes, okay. Please stop me, otherwise I can continue for all the night tonight, so that it's my very bad habit that I cannot stop talking, so please remind me. Okay, so today I brought in some idea of our new project that is just now Gonzalo had introduced to us. This is creation and sustainable governance of new commons through formation of integrated local environmental knowledge. This is the keyword. And we call it, we abbreviated it to ILEK. So I will introduce the overview of this ILEK project and preceding project in which we made a kind of network of so-called residential researchers and stakeholders collaborating with them in all over Japan. And this new project, we are also trying to gather different examples from all over the world of this residential type research, so that I'm quite sure, I'm very convinced today that your case in Galician shellfishers, apparently the TA, technical assistants, correspond very well to our concept of residential researchers. Probably I don't need to repeat this type of things, but at least this is a very baseline of our idea that bottom-up approaches are always important for even treating with global environmental change issues. For example, worldwide degradation of ecosystem services emerges in various areas with different reasons. And for providing solutions of this, we need something like mechanisms of stakeholder-driven solution, and also some type of knowledge base to support collaborative actions of people in each local area. So in that sense, probably we need a kind of new paradigm of science, of global environmental studies, incorporating the viewpoint of knowledge users who are on the ground, working to achieve solutions of their own problems from their own perspectives. So that we need a kind of new science to support these local actions. In the previous project, we found, it was from 2008 to September 2012, that was last year, I think. And this was supported by Japan Science and Technology Agency, and RISTEX simply means Research Institute for Science and Technology for Society. So it's a kind of social and science interaction research center, and the title is Construction of a Pragmatic Scientist Community Contributing to Stakeholder-Driven Management of Local Environment. In this project, we simply asked this question. Scientifically varied ideas and approaches are always produced and always provided to local community, but local communities does not really respect or acknowledge these type of ideas and technology, but usually they are simply ignoring these scientific advices, and such kind of problems are so common in Japan and probably outside of the world. So that usually scientists usually think that this type of phenomena is due to the lack of scientific literacy among local stakeholders. They don't understand the science, so that they cannot take an action. But it's not really true, we thought. We thought maybe problem of science itself. So scientists may produce knowledge with very limited applicability to real setting of local problems. It is usually generally right. In each local community, they have their own constraint, their own history, their own value systems and decision-making systems. And these generally right answers are not always right in local community. And also, the problem is we can produce such kind of generalized answers or solutions simply because our knowledge production system is totally away from local reality. We are looking for generally right things. And so that often ignore local value system or decision-making processes. And as a result, this scientific result is, as it is, very difficult for local people to accept and use. And also, we see some problem that some people, like myself, tried to produce locally applicable solutions. And it is not really a kind of good science, not obtaining high evaluation from academic communities because so specific to local situation, no generalities. And in that sense, these structures are more basic problem than the lack of scientific literacy among stakeholders. Then, holding these questions in our mind, we took a look at various cases of Japanese people who have been actively working together with science, and then we could find these type of people, which we call residential researchers or residential research institutions. There's an example of Dr. Naoki Kikuchi from Hyogo, previously at Hyogo Prefectural Homeland for Oriental Stock. Kikuchi-san, stand up, please. Yeah, we brought real example here, okay? And then we also have Mr. Masahito Kamimura from WWF Coral Reef Conservation and Research Center. Kamimura-san, stand up, please. Yeah, this is our sample too. And also we can see these type of research center outside of Japan. For example, this is Michael Crosby from Mott Marine Laboratory in Florida. And these people are kind of dedicated researchers or dedicated institutions to in the local community. And these researchers live in the local community with the clear missions to contribute solutions of local environmental problems. And these people are blossoming everywhere now, and they are playing key roles to connect scientific knowledge and local knowledge. Probably it's really easy to understand what these residential researchers, if we can compare them to normal style of science or conventional style of science, which we call visiting type. I myself is typically a visiting researcher, living in big cities and going to, for example, rural islands in southern part of Japan to make research there as a kind of research field. And they are, of course, very important people to provide knowledge for local people to work together to do some actions towards solution of local environmental problems. But of course, they have some limitations. They only appear in the emergency of local community. Simply, when local community is in a crisis, there is something interesting for scientists. So that scientists are usually coming to such kind of community. And if the crisis becomes a bit better, then going away. And so their commitment to the local problem is very limited, only from their own scientific perspective, and limited research period and living anyway. So in that sense, they are very important actors for local community to gain scientific knowledge, but still their commitment has clear-cut limitations. But if you are living in the community, then you can have, for example, a face of scientists, providing scientific knowledge from the global viewpoint, contributing to design and practice of participatory research, bringing different specialties through your network with external scientists. This is a phase of scientists of the residential researchers. At the same time, they are local residents, so that they have resident phase, or stakeholder phase, or knowledge users phase. They are in the position to use scientific knowledge as a part of stakeholder network in the local community. They share an affection towards local nature, like you love shellfish here, and these type of things, as a resident there. And then also, they can contribute local decision-making and policies as a part of very trustable community members. So that these people have dual or even multiple identities in the community, including scientific experts. And these type of people have much more deeper commitment to the local issues and in a very good position to bring in plausible solutions or applicable solutions to each local community. Also, these people can play a very significant role as a bilateral translator of knowledge. This terminology is first coined by Michael Crosby in Florida right now when he was in NOAA in the US. But we define this bilateral translator of knowledge as such. They are scientists or specialists, and at the same time a stakeholder in the community, so that residential researchers can play a role of the translator very frequently. And they can they can mediate or circulate scientific knowledge into the local community by re-evaluating or reconstructing, reorganizing these scientific knowledge from the viewpoint of local stakeholders living there. This is their role to bring in science into local community. And then they can do the different direction. They can translate the indigenous knowledge system or local knowledge system accumulated among fishermen, for example, into the scientific language and let these local practice known to the entire world, scientific world, academics. So by doing these type of bilateral translation, these people can be a kind of activator or catalyst, as Mr. Kamimura's words, to support adaptive governance and dynamic changes of local stakeholder network by translation and circulation of different type of knowledge. I just introduced you this figure, classical figure. This was proposed by Michael Crosby's new paradigm, which was in 1990s. He postulated that science has this circle, this circle of hypothesis formulation and verification and so on. This is a classical cycle of science. And there's a need of policymakers and decision makers for appropriate guidelines for them. And then he postulated this needs of translators mediating science and society through these different type of activities here. And at his period of 1990s, this arrow here was unidirectional, scientific knowledge into society. But we expanded this concept to make it bilateral, so that scientists also learn from the society. And scientific knowledge also comes to the various type of stakeholders in the society for them to incorporate it into their own knowledge base. And we came up with this concept of integrated local environmental knowledge, ILEK. This is a type of knowledge structure that is produced by the action of these bilateral translators and residential researchers. And this is apparently transdisciplinary. I mean, if you are really trying to solve local problems, I myself is fish ecologist by training, but I cannot sit on the fish ecology forever. If you are really talking to local, really committed to local issues, I have to learn something about social system in this community. I have to learn value system of these fishermen, and such kind of things comes into me. And you have to be one as a kind of multidisciplinary person. You have to be a multidisciplinary person. So this type of knowledge is transdisciplinary in nature, which means not only interdisciplinary among different scientific research domains, but also closely tied with the society and stakeholders. And these are solution-oriented knowledge systems. And these are blends of science and different types of knowledge, not only indigenous knowledge, but many other types of knowledge produced in the collaborative actions with scientists and stakeholders. And their production, formation, and ILEK formation and production is very dynamic. It is changing every time by introduction and interpenetration of different knowledge systems. And this can be, or this is usually in the mind of everybody. This type of knowledge system is in everybody. Everybody has this type of knowledge system to decide what they should do. So this is a knowledge base for decision making and practice by local stakeholders. And most importantly, of course, these knowledge are not only produced by scientists, but also produced among different stakeholders. We acknowledge very tremendous and rich knowledge base among farmers or fishers, or even local companies, NGOs, or government officials. One typical example is Dr. Shin Kakuma here. Yes, Kakuma-san, please stand up. He's a fisheries extension officer of Okinawa prefectural government, and he is a leading scientist of coral reef conservation in Japan, and internationally known. But he stays in the local government, working together with stakeholders, fishermen. And most of them, then, like Kakuma-san, is professional scientist, living in the local community, and using his own knowledge or knowledge with other people to solve local problems. So most of them are knowledge users at the same time. This is a definition of integrated local environmental knowledge. I just give you one example of typical type of ILEK production by one person in a local fisherman's cooperative. It is called Onna Village Fisheries Cooperative, and this gentleman is Mr. Yoshimihiga, and he is an employee of local fisherman's cooperative. This fisherman's cooperative is very famous in developing this seaweed, mozuku. This is our favorite food, one of our favorites. It is ridiculous food for most of non-Japanese. It's very slimy and strange seaweed. But this is their aquaculture system. Yep. This is the aquaculture system with this mozuku seaweed in a very shallow area with this artificial patch of this seaweed produce rich biodiversity within the seaweed and also very high productivity. Simply, they produce a quite nice amount of tons of this seaweed, and this seaweed dominates Japanese market of this seaweed. So they are very successful in this aquaculture technique, mariculture technique, and at the same time, they recognize the importance of, for example, land management, because there are a lot of soil runoff from the mismanagement of the land, which directly affects shallow coastal zone, including this mozuku farming areas. So they try to organize a consortium with developers and farmers. So fisheries cooperative people take a lead to organize farmers and developers to collaboratively stop the runoff of the soil from development or farmlands. So, and at the same time, they also recognize the importance of the offshore side, where rich coral reef were there, but the coral reef were seriously damaged by crown of thorn starfish. They are voracious predator of hard corals. And so they developed, again, the controlling mechanisms or controlling method of these coral predators that they say they are specialists of overfishing. So we can deplete resources. Then why don't we try to do overfish of this crown so starfish so that we can deplete these predators? So that they made a very systematic way of culling these voracious predators from the coral reefs, and they were very successful. And they developed their own population dynamics model of this crown thorn starfish, and this model is quite interesting even for us, the specialists. And then, of course, they are professional again for aquaculture, and they started to a method of aquaculture of hard corals. This is again very cutting-edge technologies, and their methods are first criticized by scientific community, but now widely accepted as a very successful case. And this is what they are doing in the shallow water. These nets are covering these young corals from the predators. And these coral culture techniques are developed for restore the coral reef environment offshore of their mozuku farming ground, so that the condition of this farming ground should be much more improved if these healthy coral reefs are living in an offshore side. And these activities led them to move further to organize this planting activity of these artificially propagated corals together with consumers in the large cities. Now they are collaborating with fisheries product companies to sell a small piece of mozuku in a large market in the cities. And if consumers buy their mozuku, then a few yen is donated for this coral reef restoration actions. And in that sense, they are simply working in a fisheries cooperative. So in the conventional sense, nobody thought that they have such a strong scientific background and scientific ability to develop various techniques in various social systems. But they are actually doing it much better than professional scientists. And they are even stepping into real local management system where they focus on mozuku farming as their base of livelihood. And then they need healthy coastal ocean to support this mozuku farming. And so they make various actions to restore ocean conditions of coastal ocean. And by doing this, they make a network of people and capacity building of local people, including fishermen themselves. So they are kind of the center of the activities in this particular village for sustainable development. So we simply portray the structure of this integrated local environmental knowledge. Conventionally, we have this type of idea. There are professional scientists producing very specific scientific knowledge. And there are different types of knowledge systems in livelihood of everybody. And these indigenous knowledge, ethnic technology, and whatsoever, various things. But as we saw right now from the fisheries cooperative examples, there are different type of knowledge system, like participatory research by stakeholders, knowledge production in the primary industries like farmers and fishers, companies, governments, NGOs, and all these knowledge sets are integrated to form a knowledge system. That is ILEK. Then we came up with the idea to make a network of these residential researchers and visiting researchers working in close collaboration with these residential researchers or local communities for longer perspective, like 10 years or so, or various type of local stakeholders working with these residential researchers and local translators. So this network is called the Local Science Network for Environment and Sustainability. It was established in March 2010, and now we have more than 130 people members from all over Japan. And in the new ILEK project, we are trying to expand this network to international arena. So we have a very nice network in Japan of residential researchers, and we have an opportunity to develop a new research project from April 2012. It is a 5-year project, and we call it ILEK project. So this project typically aims to clarify the mechanisms of ILEK formation and also the global and local connections. I will come back to this point later. But these residential researchers can bring in global visions from a scientific point of view into local agenda. And in that sense, they are really helpful for the local communities to adapt international agenda. And later on, Professor Hiroyuki Matsuda from Yokohama National University will talk something about using this international framework for developing research capability or action capability in the local community. And also, we believe that these ILEK production and circulation and the action of these translators can result in adaptive governance of local communities by dynamic decision making in the action. And the project tried to clarify how these local stakeholders play a major role to construct sustainable society by ILEK production and translation of knowledge. And our eventual goal will be science for society, to design the science for society, and to design society making full use of these scientific results, and clarify the way forward for bottom-up solutions of global environmental problems. One example, one typical example is Mr. Masahito Kamimura. He's here. And in his case, oh no, sorry. How many minutes did I talk? Okay. Okay. Then anyway, Mr. Kamimura will talk by himself tomorrow, so I just skip his slide. And there are a lot of interesting cases in Japan right now. For example, this is a case of the translator popping up from among stakeholders. This lady has been working together with high school students to restore these seagrass bed in Japanese coastal water, and she recognized huge gap between scientists coming to their community and their framing of problems. So that she really wanted to be a translator to bring in people from outside, like scientists, and knowledge from outside, like scientific knowledge. And she wanted to be a translator, and she decided to take a career path to be enrolled in a graduate school, Kyoto University graduate school, to get a kind of common language with strange scientists. So this is a typical case of people, local stakeholders. We define their role to be a translator of knowledge. And Professor Matsuda's case is also quite interesting. visiting researcher is also transforming themselves. In his case and his team of scientific committee in Shiretoko World Heritage Site in northern part of Japan, they are typically a kind of scientist nominated by Japanese Ministry of Education. So their enrollment to local community is top down. Suddenly comes the local community to say, oh, you should do this. So these type of scientists are usually annoyed by local people. but in his case, or this scientific community's case, even though they came to the community from very top-down processes, they deliberately tried to play a coordinator role, not teaching local community, but coordinating different costs and benefits among local people. Of course, they are scientists, so they require scientific validity. But at the same time, they do not insist to deliver the optimal solution. But they tried to find feasible solution among stakeholders. One typical case is this MPAs in local fishermen's association. When these World Heritage Site is registered, they were required to strengthen marine environmental management, but fishermen did not agree further strengthening or tightening the fisheries regulation. Then their solution was, okay, but you have been spontaneously doing your own resource management from long before. Apparently, the Fishermen's Association here had conducted very nice resource management system of setting MPA in this way. So what they proposed, and the fishermen agreed, is to expand their own MPS areas a little bit wider, so that they can the fishermen voluntarily strengthen fisheries management effort without any top-down regulations. And this was very, very well known now among these World Heritage people, and internationally well-known example of very, very nice case for community-driven management of fisheries resources. These cases gave me an idea of this multi-scale governance. For simplicity, we just say local, national, and global level. We have been basically focusing on this local level. But apparently, in each level, we can see a massive knowledge flow between scientists or experts and stakeholders, decision makers. Like here in local level, these residential researchers or local science network itself can play a role of horizontal translator of knowledge. And each level, national level or global level, such kind of translator exists. But, yeah, at the same time, we see quite interesting case of these vertical translators. There are a lot of organizations and people working to translate different framing from global to local or local to global, like these people, UNESCO World Heritage, Man and Biosphere programs, WWF eco-region programs, or Aquaculture Stewardship Council and other certificate bodies. They are working with the mindset and framing at the global level. They are doing something globally important. But they try to deliver this idea to local community. For example, each fisheries cooperatives or each forestry cooperatives. So in that sense, they are vertical translator of knowledge, translating the framing of global level or national level to fit to each local community. Then we can find out different directions, mainly bottom-up processes. For example, this is what Dr. Kakuma has been analyzing for long years. there's an MPA network for coral reef conservation, which is called Locally Managed Marine Areas, LMMA. And it is a kind of network of local actions. Each local community have their own management system and conservation system of coral reefs. And scientists from the outside try to network these local actions to deliver international message that these type of local action has tremendous importance. Another famous example is this ICCAs, indigenous and community conserved areas. That is promoted by IUCN, and the idea is similar. There are a lot of natural resource areas or some land use patterns in which local communities have been traditionally made some kind of regulations. And they are very diverse in forms. They are probably the most effective way to manage local resources. So that these type of ICCAs should be recognized more by international communities for delivering more effective global agenda or management of environmental problems. So we could reasonably hypothesize that knowledge produced in multiple scales are already blended by this massive circulations by different type of translators. And probably these type of multi-scale knowledge base is very dynamically produced and circulating, and stakeholders are using this type of knowledge in different levels, so that we can easily assume that by utilizing this type of knowledge flow system, we can probably postulate the possible way of multi-scale governance, not only local community, but affecting the global agenda and interacting each other. This type of multi-scale governance mechanisms may be clarified using this type of assumption. So, in short, we believe that there is a hypothetical mechanisms in which ILEK production assist or support local adaptive governance of the community. First of all, ILEK is formed by collaboration and interaction between different knowledge producers and knowledge users in the community. And then residential researchers and translators appear in the community and dynamically change their own positions or roles in the community so that they can catalyze local actions by producing ILEK and circulating and using it. Also, the bilateral translators can mediate knowledge flow across multiple scales from global to local and facilitate coordinated bottom-up and multi-scale solutions of global environmental problems. So what we really would like to do is gathering these case study sites. And there are a lot of case studies now accumulated in our project. Actually, this is an old figure, so that we now have 61 or even more case studies all over the world. And these areas, we have a very strong commitment by our project members as in residential researchers or visiting researchers to work together with the community so that we can have a possibility to do very focused social experiments in these areas. And at the same time, we have a quite interesting potential of multi-scale interactions. In these black circle cases, there is this huge potential of some kind of global or national agents come to the local community to work together, like World Heritage Site or Manhan Biosphere programs, biosphere reserves, and such kind of things, or Ramsar Convention also. And this is our structure of research organization. We have case study group here. case study group here, and multi-scale analysis group, analyzing these multi-scale translators from top-down and bottom-up processes. And these are interacting each other to find out social experimental sites and a design of these type of social experiments. And then also we have mathematicians and theoreticians to do theoretical modeling and analysis, meta-analysis of these different case studies. And managing group try to integrate all these results, including myself. And then we also find importance of ethical aspects of this research. We are so committed to local values or local decision makings. And apparently our commitment to the society is much more stronger than conventional science. Just sitting on behind the scene and simply delivering the knowledge or information to local community and just leave it as it is. We are doing much more than that to get into the local community to work together with them. So there is apparently ethical issues appearing in such kind of value-oriented science. So we had the ethics of design-oriented science task force. TF means task force. And then we have Dr. Taisuke Miyauchi here from Hokkaido University is leading this environmental governance task force, which should connect this empirical side of the study here, and abstract theory and modeling by providing theory of environmental governance, theory and analysis of environmental governance. And also we have different type of task forces to try to connect these quite diverse case studies from particular viewpoints of analysis, including residential research task force and Satoumi Fisheries Resource Task Force. Satoumi concept. I just briefly explain the Satoumi concept and stop talking. Is it okay? Yep. Satoumi is a kind of Japanese concept, Japanese terminology, originally derived from Satoyama. Sato means human inhabited area, Yama means forest, and Umi means ocean. So human inhabited area, Satoumi simply means interface between human livelihood and ocean. So Vigo can be a Satoumi example. But difference is that this type of Satoumi coastal social ecological system has enriched ecosystem services and biodiversity by sustainable resource use by humans. So in other words, human commitment or interaction or resource use of the ocean improve the condition of ocean in terms of ecosystem services and biodiversity. It is totally different from the idea of pristine nature has highest values or wilderness without human impact has the highest value among the nature systems. In this idea, human action can create better natural setup, even in coastal area, and also land area, which we call Satoyama, human inhabited area and mountains. And this type of social ecological system, probably later on, Dr. Kamata will talk something about the Satoumi concept combined with residential type research to create quite new and interesting area of research right now. But anyway, this type of Satoumi has been degraded in modern Japan by loss of human-nature interactions across all over the coastal area of Japan, simply because of the lifestyle change and coastal development. And this type of Satoumi ecosystem should be managed collaboratively with different stakeholders. Like not only shellfishers can solve all the problem of shellfish fisheries in your system. Apparently, there's a lot of other difficult problems like runoff of chemical pesticides or nutrients from land agriculture practice, or all other different impacts can be produced by human actions. So these Satoumi systems require co-management of different type of stakeholders, and of course, including scientists. So at the same time, collaborative decision-making and actions are quite important. So we believe that there is a requirement for transdisciplinary knowledge base, bringing science and local knowledge or other type of knowledge system, and new paradigm of science to provide this shared knowledge among diverse stakeholders to reconnect human nature, to create Satoumi again. And we are very convinced that your technical assistants or our residential researchers can play key role in recreating these type of productive human-nature relationship, which improve natural ecosystem and social system for sustainable development. So probably I can continue 3-4 hours more, but I just stop my talk around here, and probably I'm so happy to have your comments on my talk. Thank you very much. Probably outside of the world. So that and usually scientists usually think that this type of phenomena is due to the lack of scientific literacy among local stakeholders. They don't understand the science, so that they cannot take an action. But it's not really true, we thought. We thought maybe problem of science itself. So scientists may produce knowledge with very limited applicability to real setting of local problems. It is usually generally right. In each local community, they have their own constraint, their own history, their own value systems and decision-making systems. And these generally right answers are not always right in local community. And also, the problem is we can produce such kind of generalized answers or solutions simply because our knowledge production system is totally away from local reality. We are looking for generally right things. And so that often ignore local value system or decision-making processes. And as a result, this scientific result is, as it is, very difficult for local people to accept. Thank you very much, Gonzalo. And thank you very much, everybody. Very nice to be here in University of Vigo and this really nice campus today. And we are also privileged to visit one village in this area to take a look at the shell fisheries management. And we have a really good sense of how the local fishers and technical assistants and university people are collaborating to try to create a kind of management model that is closely fit to real local situation. And this is what we really would like to do in our project. So by the way, how many minutes do I have?
40 minutes.
40 minutes, okay. Please stop me, otherwise I can continue for all the nights tonight, so that it's my very bad habit that I cannot stop talking. So please remind me. Okay. So today I brought in some idea of our new project that is just now Gonzalo had introduced to us. This is creation and sustainable governance of new commons through formation of integrated local environmental knowledge. This is the keyword. And we call it, we abbreviated it to ILEK. So I will introduce the overview of this ILEK concept and use. And also, we see some problem that some people, like myself, tried to produce locally applicable solutions. And it is not really a kind of good science, not obtaining high evaluation from academic communities because so specific to local situation, no generalities. And in that sense, these structures are more basic problem than the lack of scientific literacy among stakeholders. Then, holding these questions in our mind, we took a look at various cases of Japanese people who have been actively working together with science, and then we could find these type of people, which we call residential researchers or residential research institutions. There's an example of Dr. Naoki Kikuchi from Hyogo, previously at Hyogo Prefectural Homeland for Oriental Stock. Kikuchi-san, stand up, please. Yeah, we brought real example here, okay? And then we also have Mr. Masahito Kamimura from WWF Coral Reef Conservation and Research Center. Kamimura-san, stand up, please. Yeah, this is our project end, preceding project in which we made a kind of network of so-called residential researchers and stakeholders collaborating with them in all over Japan. And this new project, we are also trying to gather different examples from all over the world of this residential type research, so that I'm quite sure, I'm very convinced today that your case in Galician shellfishes, apparently the TA, the technical assistants, correspond very well to our concept of residential researchers. I don't need to repeat this type of things, but at least this is a very baseline of our idea that bottom-up approaches are always important for even treating with global environmental change issues. For example, worldwide degradation of ecosystem services emerges in various areas with different reasons. And for providing solutions of this, we need something like mechanisms of stakeholder-driven solution, and also some type of knowledge base to support collaborative actions of people in each local area. So in that sense, probably we need a kind of new paradigm of science, of global environmental studies, incorporating the viewpoint of knowledge users who are on the ground, working to achieve solutions of their own problems from their own perspectives. So that we need a kind of new science to support these local actions. In the previous project, we found, it was from 2008 to September 2012, that was last year, I think. And this was supported by Japan Science and Technology Agency, and RISTEX simply means Research Institute for Science and Technology for Society. So it's a kind of social and science interaction research center, and the title is Construction of a Pragmatic Scientist Community Contributing to Stakeholder-Driven Management of Local Environment. In this project, we simply asked this question. Scientifically varied ideas and approaches are always produced and always provided to local community, but local communities does not really respect or acknowledge these type of ideas and technology, but usually they are simply ignoring these scientific advices, and such kind of problems are so common in Japan and